Apple's AirPods have become something of an international phenomenon, and the company released their most recent model back in late October called AirPods Pro. The new model didn't replace the existing AirPods, but rather serve as a higher-end, higher-priced offering with premium features. And as Apple has released each new generation of AirPods, the third-party market has been hard at work bringing as many of the AirPods features in a similar form factor but at a lower price. I've reviewed several of these knockoff AirPods in the past, including the TWS i7s, i9s, and i10s, with each new iteration performing and appearing more similar to the real thing than the model before. And these new KP Pros are no exception. They're virtually indistinguishable from Apple's AirPods Pro, and they deliver many of the same features at a fraction of the cost. So let's take a closer look at the KP Pros and figure out if they're the right headphone for you. Now you can find the KP Pros at Knockies.com, who was kind enough to sponsor this video. I've actually been a fan of Knockies for a while and have made quite a few review videos of their products, and their most recent product is a knockoff of Apple's AirPods Pro, which I was definitely curious about. So let's start off by taking a look at the KP Pro's packaging. Knockies always does a great job at recreating Apple's unboxing experience, and that's also the case here. On the front of the box, we have a photo of the headphones, while the back features the charging case. We lift the lid to open the box, and right away we're greeted by the KP Pro charging case with the headphones inside, and underneath that we have its charging cable, which, just like with the AirPods Pro, is Lightning to USB-C. Now I should mention there are a couple items missing, since this is a pre-launch unit. The box you receive will include a pair of extra ear tips and a user manual. Now let's take a look at the product itself, starting with its design. I'm really impressed by how similar it looks to the AirPods Pro. I often got them confused during testing. Even the hinge design is a near exact match, and this is carried through to the headphones themselves, which feature the same sensor layout with black mesh, same in-ear design, and same short stem as the AirPods Pro. There are only two differences with the KP Pros. First, its silver charging contacts aren't integrated into the plastic stem, but rather capped onto the end, similar to the standard AirPods. Also, if you remove the silicone ear tip, you'll notice this part that protrudes from the body, whereas the AirPods Pro simply has a flat black mesh. And that means the way you remove and attach the ear tips are also slightly different. With the AirPods Pro, the ear tips snap on and off, whereas the KP Pro's ear tips slide on and off. I should also mention that while you receive an extra set of silicone ear tips with your KP Pros, they only come in one size, whereas the AirPods Pro offers a choice between small, medium, and large. And while we're on this subject, let's talk about how the ear tips feel when they're actually inside your ear. When it comes to AirPods Pro, I find the large ear tips feel most comfortable and secure in my ear, so when I saw the smaller sized silicone ear tips on the KP Pros, I was worried they would fall out or fail to create a seal, but that turned out not to be the case, because while the ear tips are smaller in diameter, the silicone material itself is more rigid compared to the AirPods Pro, and that means they secure themselves in your ear quite well. Also, the KP Pros sit deeper in my ear than the AirPods Pro, which I actually prefer since it prevents them from sliding out when I smile or eat, a problem many people, myself included, have been experiencing with Apple's AirPods Pro. Now the last thing I want to point out about the KP Pro's design is this indentation on the stem, which is also featured on the AirPods Pro. Apple calls it the force sensor, and squeezing it triggers certain functions that used to be activated on previous AirPod models by tapping. But if you squeeze the force sensor on the KP Pros, nothing happens. That's because this indentation is for show only. It doesn't actually serve a functional purpose. Instead, the KP Pros use tap controls similar to the standard AirPods. Tap once to play or pause music and to answer or end calls, tap twice to skip forward, 3 times to skip backward, and finally tap and hold to activate Siri. So that's a detailed look at the KP Pro's headphone design. Now let's take a look at the charging case. As I mentioned earlier, it's virtually identical to the AirPods Pro. It features the same LED indicator on the front, which shines orange when the battery is low, a lightning port on the bottom for charging, although the case is capable of wireless charging, and a button on the back for manual Bluetooth pairing. Now, I say manual pairing because if you have an Apple device running iOS 13.2 or later, you can simply lift the lid and pair the KP Pros through this pop-up window. Otherwise, press and hold the charging case button until you see the LED pulse white. Then navigate to your device's Bluetooth settings and tap Connect. Now, one feature of the KP Pros that I really appreciate is the beeping to confirm connection and disconnection, rather than a robotic voice saying connected or disconnected that I've heard on other third-party headphones. So how do the KP Pros actually sound? Well, not as good as the AirPods Pro, but they're definitely an improvement over previous knockoff AirPods that I've reviewed in the past. The bass sounds more substantial, and the overall equalization between the vocals, treble, and bass is more balanced. Also, these KP Pros have the same ear detection technology as the AirPods Pro, so when you remove one of the headphones, it automatically pauses and then automatically resumes once you reinsert it. But what I really enjoyed about using the KP Pros is the passive noise cancellation. Since these are in-ear headphones, they form a seal in your ear canal that acts as a sound barrier to prevent ambient noise from drowning out your music. And that not only makes your music sound better, but it allows you to listen at lower volumes. I should also mention that passive noise cancellation is not the same thing as active noise cancellation. The AirPods Pro feature active noise cancellation, which is a technology that listens for ambient noise and plays frequencies to cancel out the sound. And while this capability isn't available on the KP Pros, passive noise cancellation is. Now, something I noticed when switching back and forth between the AirPods Pro and KP Pros was how much lighter the charging case for the KP Pros were, and it made me wonder if less weight could mean less battery life. Well, that turned out not to be the case at all. The KP Pros achieved virtually the same battery life as the AirPods Pro in my testing, which is quite impressive. And I think one reason for that is the KP Pros have passive noise cancellation, which doesn't affect battery life, whereas the AirPods Pro has active noise cancellation, which negatively affects battery life. I was also able to recharge the headphones 3 times before the charging case ran out of battery. So for this entire video, I've been comparing these KP Pros to the AirPod Pros without actually mentioning perhaps the most important difference, and that is their price. Apple sells the AirPods Pro for $250, which is a lot of money to pay for a pair of headphones. But Knockoff sells the KP Pros for just $100, and that means you could buy 2 pairs of KP Pros and still save $50 compared to buying 1 pair of AirPods Pro. And I think the wide price gap can be explained for a couple reasons. First, Apple had to spend a lot more money on research, development, and marketing to bring the AirPods Pro to market. Plus, Apple tends to have a higher markup on their products compared to other tech companies. Second, there are features the KP Pros don't have, like active noise cancellation and force sensors, that allow them to be more affordable. And that may leave some of you wondering whether or not you should pay the extra $150 for the AirPods Pro, or if the KP Pros are good enough. Well, I think that decision will be easier to make when you consider what that extra $150 is getting you. With the AirPods Pro, you'd have active noise cancellation, which does eliminate more ambient noise, you'd have force sensors to control your music instead of tap controls, and you'd have improved sound quality. But keep in mind what the KP Pros offer. They have passive noise cancellation that does help muffle outside noise. They have tap controls which deliver the same functionality as the AirPods Pro force sensor, and they have sound quality that was good enough for me to enjoy music. Plus, they have many of the same features as the AirPods Pro, like one-tap pairing, wireless charging, ear detection, tap controls, great battery life, a secure fit, and an attractive design. So depending on how much disposable income you have, you may want to seriously consider saving $150 and buying the KP Pros. Actually, you can save even more than that since Knockies is giving you guys 10% off. Just go to knockies.com and use the discount code APEX10 at the checkout, and you'll pay $90 instead of $100. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.